Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Church Security Answer Man. I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about something several of you have been requesting over the last couple of months, how to deal with the media during a church crisis. And I do recommend that you have someone that's designated for that it's not just a free-for-all when something happens. That way, this person has an opportunity to study up a little bit and get prepared, which is what we're going to talk about today, is having that person. And we're doing church security, and I think this is part of it. In fact, your church security leader might end up being the one that should be the PIO. Now, I have some experience. Just want to clarify, just out of high school, a few years, I worked for a couple different newspapers doing freelance work and stuff. So I was in the environment, and then I was dealing with the press and the media throughout my law enforcement career. And for just a few years, I was designated as one of the PIOs. So I dealt with them almost every day. So that's what I'm coming from. I just want to give you a few pointers and try to give you some ideas of something to start planning for, if you will, for dealing with the media, because we've seen a couple of incidents recently that we've been talking about. If you follow the channel, a couple of incidents where the media, the words that were given, what we said to the press did not sound very good from a couple of these churches. So that's why we're digging into this just a little bit more. I do want to encourage you to subscribe to our page. Let's connect, because that gives you a whole opportunity to track what we're talking about and what we're promoting. And I want you to leave comments for me. I'd love to hear from you, what you need to hear about, or your comments on what we're talking about. So let's dive into this and talk about how to handle the media during a church crisis. And first of all, first thing we want to talk about is, this is several things that can happen. So we can have bad outcomes of operations. This can be a youth trip or something that happens, an accident that occurs. It can be an employee or a volunteer that's has misconduct, abuse allegations, regulatory violations, or somebody mismanages funds, something like that, some embarrassing moment like that, accidents, even natural disasters. Maybe they affected the church a little bit more than everybody else, or occurred during one of your events, which became harmful, whatever that looks like. So what can attract the media attention? Being prepared for these kind of things ahead of time. And I want to make sure and mention, I've got nothing against these folks. I used to have some friends that were working for the media that were reporters, and still a couple distantly that I know. I don't have any problems with these folks, but we want to remember that these people, when it comes right down to it, the media, the reporters, their job is to sell time, is to get people to watch, to read, whatever that looks like. That's their job. So they're sometimes maybe engaged in sensationalizing something to attract more people. And that can be dealing with you. Churches are a hot topic these days. So they could very well engage in a little bit of hyping something up, or if you don't give them the answers, which is one of the things we're talking about today, they may put in their own answers, which may be a little bit hyped up. That's their job, basically, is to sell magazines, sell time on listening to them or watching them, whatever that looks like. So let's talk about managing the crisis communication. I want to get right into it. I really recommend, in phase one, this is immediately after something happens. This is when you have an incident that happens, that comes to light, that they're starting to report on, or maybe it's something that you're starting to think we should talk about. Nobody knows about it yet, but it's coming out. I don't know what that case might be for you, but in those general areas, we want to start looking at coming out with the information. Phase one, as I'm calling it. In phase one, do not use the phrase no comment. And that's just my opinion. These are my opinions from my experience and from what I've seen. Don't use no comment, because that allows them to begin to put their own facts together, and no comment can tend to mean we're guilty of something and we don't want to talk about it. So instead of no comment, push it down the road a little bit. And instead of telling the inquiry meeting reporters no comment, tell them the situation is being reviewed and we will have a statement as soon as we have the facts. that sounds professional. That sounds like you're working on it, and sounds like you're interested, and it sounds like you're going to get back to them, and which we want to do. And I would suggest you give them a date and time. You'll give them your statement. So in 2 days, I wouldn't make it too long. Otherwise, they'll start doing their own digging and coming up with stuff. The bigger this is, of course. So give them, tell them that we're looking into this. We're going to review it. And you probably already know at that time quite a few of the facts, but you're going to review it, look into it, and you'll have a date and time. You'll have a release in 2 days or in 3 days at noon. You'll release a statement to them. And so get the ball rolling, sound responsible, sounds good to them, and it sounds like you're in control, which is one of the things that we want to talk about. Still in phase one, you give that date and time of your release. It's coming up and you're investigating. Quick responses, be decisive that you will give a statement on a date and time. So just tell them that, set that up. Again, I know how these things happen. When incidents happen, whether it's a church involved or other groups that I've been involved in, you already know a lot of the facts and you're not releasing them. You want to double check. You're trying to figure out what to do, what to say. You maybe even need to consult with an attorney or someone else. And so be decisive that you will give a statement. And this helps you more control public perception of how you're handling it. You're coming out to them and you're saying, we're going to have releases. We're looking into this. We're investigating it. As soon as our review is complete, we will have further statements and we will have a statement available for you on this date and time. And it should, be just 2 or 3 days away kind of thing soon. Still in that phase one, you've given them the quick response that you're going to give a statement, a date and time. And if you don't respond quickly and control the public perception, like I'm already saying, the media is going to do it for you. And we don't want that. We want to get our side out because this, don't forget, this kind of stuff we're talking about can be detrimental. I mean, it can embarrass your people, your volunteers, your members, those kind of folks, and tend to scatter them. It can certainly give you zero confidence with the community as well if something like this happens versus you come out and you begin to make statements and you're decisive about things. That's important for all of these people involved, for all your members, all these kind of things, because we have seen incidents that will literally close a church because of abuse or other things that happen. So if you don't respond quickly, you're not decisive, you don't look like you're in control, the media will begin to control the narrative for you. So now we go into phase two and managing this crisis communication situation at your church. Phase two, just some ideas for you. On that date and time that you announced that you're going to release information, you need to release information. The keys, you should appear cooperative. These C's here, the 4 C's, cooperative, concerned, you're in control, you're decisive, you show compassion for any people involved. Those are important, the 4 C's. And there's other things that you may be advised of, and I certainly would listen to that, especially if you're talking to an attorney. I'm not a legal representative. I just have some experience in this area, and I'm getting some questions and some folks that really want to hear about this. So here's my basic input on the fact. And our team's talking about creating a course on this as well. So you might see that in the future. Read a prepared statement outlining what the facts are as you have determined them to be. So we're in phase two. We're giving our release. Make it a written statement. You want to prepare it ahead of time, outline the facts, be cooperative, be concerned and in control, and show compassion for people involved. Very important. Continuing with that release information, the keys for your prepared statement that I would suggest to you, and any discussion during the conference or info release, here's some things to think about. Never speculate. Don't try to speculate what was going through somebody's head or what you think they were thinking. Only the facts that you know. And if a reporter, they're going to try it at times, especially being a church, that church stuff is, if you look at the media right now and how they report stuff, If you're within 3 or 4 blocks of a church and you get stabbed or hurt or shot or something, they're saying near a church. I mean, they love to get the church involved in this, in the parking lot of the church. It just sells more stuff and gets more viewer time these days if they can put a church connection to it. So never speculate the facts. If a reporter's trying to sensationalize this stuff or say something not factual, calmly correct. This is what we know. Correct them. This is the fact. We don't know that other stuff. This is the fact. Show compassion and concern for those involved whenever you can. And if you choose, admit mistakes. If you made some basic mistakes, say so. Explain why the mistake happened and then what you were doing to fix the problem. And this is an area where you may want to consult with your attorney or your insurance agency, insurance agent about what to say in this part. If you're going to admit something, and I do think from my experience, it's probably good to admit that the incident actually happened, and you want to keep stuff on the record. If you don't want it reported, don't discuss it. You don't have off the record conversations, especially during a church crisis. No off the record conversations, because they will generally not remain off the record. If they get a hold of a bit of information from you that you don't officially discuss, they will go digging into it until they can get somebody else who will discuss it on the record or find a way to discuss it on the record. Or these days, honestly, some reporters that I suspect from things that I've witnessed, not that I've been involved in, but they have just taken it on the record, even though they were asked not to take it on the record. So it's not given on the record, and they did it anyway. So stay on the record. If you don't want it reported or you don't want to release that information, you want to keep this stuff basic. That's the important thing. Keep the stuff that you're telling people basic, the basic facts. This date and time, from our investigation, it appears that this person did this happened. We are sorry for the people involved in this, and we feel for them. We're compassionate for them, and we are doing what we can to get them some assistance during this matter. That's the kind of stuff we want to talk about. If anybody tries to go any further than that and we don't want to talk about it, don't let them. Stick to that, and that should be in your written statement. Report your own bad news. If the media might find out about something, if you know there's something going on and it hasn't gotten out yet, I would go to them first. I would put out a press release to your local media agencies, your local TV stations, reporters, press, whatever you have, radio stations. If the media has to dig for it, they might decide you're guilty and sensationalize it or report on it without all the facts ahead of time. You want to be in control of this. You want to be ahead of it and discuss these things ahead of time. Put out your release, be in control, be compassionate. Those 4 C's that we talked about. While you're managing your crisis communication, draft and rehearse that prepared statement that we're talking about here. You want to designate somebody, and I would suggest that you're designating them now. Give them some time. Choose a spokesperson that if anything was to happen at the church, this is your spokesperson. Give them a chance to do some research, be prepared, watch other people giving news reports, or maybe they have some experience. Designate them. That also keeps us from just saying things out in the parking lot, or the pastor getting approached by somebody and feeling like he or she has got to say something to the media. We can turn it over. Yeah, our media spokesperson is this person. Please contact them. And that's all we have to say. And then we don't have anybody saying anything. And we tell everybody, our volunteers and our staff, that this is our person, this is our spokesperson. And if something happens, they are the ones that are supposed to talk to the media or put out information on social media or put out press releases. None of the rest of us are supposed to do that. Establish the facts surrounding the crisis in your written statement that you release, and guard the privacy of people, staff, and the church. During this crisis, you want to protect your people. You don't want to be saying anything bad about people, volunteers, any of that. You want to guard against that stuff wherever you possibly can. If there's one person involved, we can discuss basic information, but have compassion for other people involved, for victims, and for the rest of your members of your church and your volunteers who might be very embarrassed by this. We want to try to relay that we have a great group of staff and volunteers, but we had this one incident that involved one person. So try to protect our people as best we can. And that helps you in the community as well when you do that. Control the information given to the media, avoid spin and false reports. That's one of our goals to effective crisis management. Tell them you're going to put out a written statement. As soon as you finish looking at this, put out the written statement and avoid spin, avoid false reports. Get that written statement out fairly quickly. Demonstrate that you're in control, that you're managing this crisis. Show concern for people involved. That's your suspect, person who did the bad stuff, if that's the case, the victims in this case, those that were injured, whatever the case looks like, the people in your church. You want to show compassion for people. And this is also part of your, this is part of your outreach too. How you handle this, people are watching you. They're watching your church. Are they going to come to your church? Are they not? They're going to avoid it. So are your people some of them going to leave because they're afraid now? They don't like the way you handled it. So this is important stuff. And you want to show concern, compassion. You're in control. You're professional about this. Maintain the confidence of volunteers, staff, attendees to your church, and the community through the 4 C's and even some other things that you might be saying about what a great community, what a great group of volunteers. We just had this one incident that occurred because of this one mistake. Otherwise, we're handling it. We're taking care of it. We know what occurred. And these are the steps that we're taking to take care of the situation. Give everybody confidence that you're handling. In there, your draft your statement in advance. Again, I'm just throwing out some ideas here. I'm trying to kind of maintain some order, but I'm just giving you some basic information to get you started. We do not, in your draft your statements in advance to convey that confidence. We do not yet have all the information. We want to avoid hasty accusations or inaccurate conclusions. I would be using that quite a bit wherever I could, especially with the idea that we're coming up on releasing some information. We are conducting a complete investigation of the facts. We will release more information as soon as we complete this investigation or on this date and time. And I would suggest on this date and time, something soon. That's just my suggestion, my opinion. I don't know everything, but that's my opinion. So let's talk about, here's one. And I chose one that's geographically quite a ways from any of us. So, but this is a situation and it just gives, I just want to talk about it basically. Here's a press release. Cert Ministry is aware of an incident, and this incident involved a building collapsing, which involved the church. It occurred on such date and time and location in a one-story building, which the church occupies the first floor as tenants, with other tenants occupying the ground floor. The church is currently working with authorities investigating the cause of the incident. And so they're given some basic details. Our immediate thoughts and prayers are with the persons and families affected by this incident, which again was a building collapsing. And the church is committed to providing all necessary support while investigation is ongoing. I think that's great. It's a simple statement. It's a half a page, but it packs in there, hey, we're looking at this more. We're working with the authorities. And we're compassionate for the people. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. And the church is committed to providing support, doing whatever. It's general statements, but it's effective in gaining confidence from people when they hear it and sounding like, hey, you're working with people. We're going to do what we can to help and support the people while the investigation is ongoing. The only thing I would probably add to that is what we're going to talk about at the end here is turning it over to the authorities and basically ending with further statements about this incident will come from the authorities, will come from the police, will come from the fire department, the coroner's office, the weather service. Turn it over to someone else so that they're still not hounding you as well. That's my suggestion. Here's another one. The attention of the blah, 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 under the leadership of blah, 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 has been drawn to a circulating video of a priest kissing some female students at such and such a location. The church is saddened by the news and wish to state expressly that through their investigation has immediately been instituted. So a thorough investigation has immediately been instituted into the matter and the action of this priest. And basically, they're going to deal with the priest, is what they're saying, in accordance to blah, blah, blah. And all further clarifications of this matter should be addressed to this certain person or this certain place. Meanwhile, all efforts are being made to engage the students concerned through counseling sessions to avert any psychological issues that may arise as a result of this video. So basically, I mean, they're talking about the incident. They're giving you confidence that they're looking into it. Their investigations, they're going to deal with that priest. Now, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But they're putting out a press release, and basically they're turning it over to go to this one person. I think that's still kind of a person within their church or within their organization. I would suggest, again, considering consulting with your leadership about, once you do a press release like this, you read it, you go out to the cameras, you read this statement, and you don't take any questions, or maybe you take a few questions. You're controlling the narrative here, and then you turn it over to many of us. For many of our incidents, can now turn this over to some authorities. So we can say further statements will be made by the local prosecutor. Further comments to the media should be coming from the police, from the fire department, from the arson investigators, whoever it is. Turn it over to them so that you don't have to deal with this anymore, and you can continue to abide by that narrative now and begin to say, whenever media calls, say, no, we can't comment further. You need to contact the prosecutor. We can't contact further. It's an investigation that's ongoing by the police. You need to contact the police. Whatever that is, I would suggest that you try to turn that over to someone else. So as we kind of wrap this up, you're drafting your statements to convey confidence. As you complete your information release on the date and time or via written statement, again, I want to underline, because this is a mistake I see happening where we still keep it in our lap. Once we've done our investigation, once we're releasing our information, we show compassion, concern for the people involved, all of that, and that we're being decisive about this, then we're turning it over to someone else. We defer it to entities that might be involved in an ongoing process or investigation, police, prosecutor, for further statements, for future statements on this matter. We're turning it over to them. So that's my bit of information on this topic. I just want to help you kind of start going in a direction, because so many of you have asked about it, dealing with crisis. And I do think that a church security person, leadership person, might be the best one to be involved, because they're going to be involved in this stuff. They might be your best PIO. We want to keep the leaders. I think we want to keep the pastors and priests and leadership out of having to go to the press, because we can see examples where they're worried about, they don't study this stuff, and they're worried about how is the public going to perceive us, the community, our people. And you can just see the poor pastor or leader going through this scenario in his or her head as they're trying to talk, trying to tell the truth, give a valid statement about this, but they're not sure what to do. And all of this stuff is going through their mind. When we need somebody who's designated, we can turn it over to them. They're not the leader. It also gives the leader a cushion. So, and I hate to say this, but it's the facts. It gives the leader a cushion. So that person can begin the statements. If we find out something else really bad comes to light, then somebody else in the leadership could come out and say, well, there was a little bit of rush there, or whatever the case is. And I'm speaking from the truth. If that person came out and did a statement ahead of time before they knew all the facts, or they were in error or something else, then the leader can then step up and help soften that blow from that situation if necessary. But I don't perceive that for most of us. We just need someone who's a little bit trained, who's thinking about that, who's getting a little bit of training on this, or else watching some other videos and preparing this stuff ahead of time should something go wrong. And then they become a more neutral party than the church leader, pastor, priest, whoever that is, or a deacon or an elder kind of thing. It becomes, they're then removed, they're professional, and they can make a statement about this. Thanks so much for joining me for another video. I'm so happy. We're so many of you that are sending us notes. We're just so happy with the support, and those of you who are joining and subscribing to this community here, to this channel. We appreciate that, and I love connecting with each one of you and trying to send notes back and forth. So please subscribe and get connected into our community here so that we can help each other, really. So, and take a look at this video. This next one be a great one for you to watch in your continued education process in church security.